We'll waive that. Yeah, it's going to be a long meeting. Let's go ahead and do the, let's call for consent agenda motion if anybody wants to make one.
Move for approval.
Second.
Very good. Roll call.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Very good. That carried. Then go ahead and read those at your leisure tonight.
Approve the minutes for the January 10th, 2022 meeting and the bill list in the amount of $2,192,870.94. Approve liquor license renewals for Zeno's at 109 East Main Street and Ocean City at 5 West Main Street. Approve December 2021 financial statements. Resolution transferring funds for fiscal year 2022 through December 31st of 2021. Resolution amending the policy for the sale of surplus real property. Resolution setting date for a public hearing on urban renewal plan amendment for the Marshalltown Urban Renewal Area Number 4. Resolution approving contract change order number 6 for the hangar terminal and site improvements project number APR 19001, an increase of $9,267.96. Resolution approving contract change order number 7 for the hangar terminal and site improvements project number ARP 19001, a decrease of $9,899.24. Resolution approving contract change order number 2 for the Review Park Storm Water Pump Station retaining wall and paving project number SMW 20001, an increase of $8,620. Resolution approving contract change order number 3 for the 4th Street and Meadow Lane Storm Sewer Enhancement Project number SMW 17001, an increase of $2,300. Resolution approving contract change order number 3 for the 2021 Trail Improvements Project number TRL 21001, an increase of $8,222.60. Resolution approving contract change order number 3 for the 2021 Derecho Stream Channel Clearing Project number SMW 21001, an increase of $279,170.
Thank you. On to the next item then.
We have a motion to remove discussion item review of first draft of the 2022-2023 strategic plan from the table.
Solicit that motion.
So moved, Your Honor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Want me to go?
I was going to say, I think, I don't know if Councilmember Kell would like to add in something before I say anything.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. After some thought and deliberation, I think as we work through this budget process, we are going to fund our priorities. Our priorities should be based in our goals, which are rooted in the strategic plan. So the last council meeting, we discussed pushing this off till March. I think this would be a good exercise to work in parallel or find a special time to move up that timeline.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I echo kind of the same thoughts. I don't know that we need to have 2 months in order to review the strategic plan as we all sat through and went through the process. I understand having some time in order to review the items on there to discuss in more detail for those items that need to be discussed. But as we look at the strategic plan and waiting until we're 25% of the way through the year before we adopt such a plan, I struggle with that for a little bit. And if that means that we need to reevaluate what the process is going into next year, that's a different discussion. But I don't think it should halt the progress in what we do to execute what's in front of us today. I think that drags it on and doesn't help set direction to city staff and otherwise, at least for the existing year.
Thank you. Any other councilor wish to weigh in?
Permission? Yeah.
You bet.
I understand the information brought forth by both counselors. My desire to have further conversations regarding the strategic plan were aimed at wanting to take a more meaningful look at the metrics that tell us as a council and our team as a city that we're achieving the goals we're set out for. I have had an opportunity to have those conversations and have been very strongly reassured by city staff that those conversations are very important to them to have, and I agree that we can have those conversations outside of the actual strategic plan document, and I am for moving forward with approving the strategic plan.
Very good. Anyone else wish to weigh in up here? Any? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd rather have another special meeting to talk about it, but I think we need to get it done sooner than end of March.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor, that's what I was going to propose. I think as we go through the agenda here later, you'll see that we probably don't need a January 31st special meeting for the reason that we originally thought. We could still need that for other budget discussions that need to be ongoing beyond tonight, and that could be a time for this. I do know, Councilmember Schneider, are you available on the 31st, or is that the one day you're not available?
Remotely, I'm available.
Okay. So that would be something, if we want to keep that January 31st special meeting that was already scheduled for 5:30, we could have this on that agenda to continue to discuss.
Okay. Very good. Any public discussion? Well, let's call the roll.
Schneider,
So I don't know if there's a motion, is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had a motion and
It was
second.
just
there's a motion.
to remove.
Yeah,
Do we need?
right.
Schneider,
Okay, if that's the motion,
I know I was losing it, but I didn't think I was losing it that
Okay.
badly.
all right, so we'll have this on the 31st. If that's the case, yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. On to the next item, which is H, and that's reports. And the first one of that is, the only one of that, on that part is Marshall County Arts and Cultural Alliance update.
There we go. Okay. Amber Danielson, the Executive Director of the Marshall County Arts and Culture Alliance. I wanted an opportunity just to give everyone kind of a year in review. I know we're already a month into 2022, but we had another busy year in 2021, so I wanted to take some time to just do a quick overview of what we did, and I'll try and go quick in talking because at the end we wanted to show our year-end video in review, which is a lot more fun than me talking. For a successful mural season, sorry, I keep hitting that. We were able to install 16 murals in 2021. This is just a high-level overview of all of the different ones that were installed throughout the community, many of which, sorry, Jessica. That's okay. Great Western Bank, which was done by 2 local artists, Tremont, McGregor's. You can see down here, local artist Julie Bossum at the Animal Rescue League, 13th Street District. And then to add in on those 16 murals, we were able to wrap up the sidewalk safety mural project with the school district, which included all 11 schools in Marshalltown, which is 9 in the Marshalltown Community School District, the Christian school and Catholic school. We were able to also install these signs, sidewalk safety signs, 4 at each of the school districts, and this has been just a really great opportunity for an artist to also engage with the students at each of the school and continue to increase safety and awareness of not just the students and walkers, but also the drivers in those areas. So we were excited to complete that project. Lauren actually completed 8 of the murals in 1 month, so it was a very busy June for her, and it was exciting to see that come to an end. We also worked with 2 local performing artists who did a film series, a 5-part film series, as we kicked off the beginning of this year, where many things were still very much digital. They were able to highlight several of the locations around our community, downtown, Tori actually got in the Fisher Community Center pond, which she says is not very fun to get in. So it's a good thing it's not allowed. But we also went to 13th Street District and the Gallery Garden you can see down here. We were also able to utilize music from local musicians. So it was a really great partnership of highlighting our community pride points and celebrating our local musicians and artists in this way. We were also able to do some fun celebrations throughout the community. Annually in June, we do a fundraiser for art supplies. This year, we partnered with Child Abuse and Prevention Services, raised just under $800 that goes towards their services to be able to utilize art in ways of their programs that they have with their clients and their families. We were able to do our first ever cultural fiesta in the 13th Street District, utilizing the newly redeveloped West End Park, which was wonderful. We were able to do a piñata with partnership with Zamora's and have some traditional dancers and music. And we even had the local high school Latin dance group perform, and it was just a really great celebration of culture and food and music and just coming together as a community. And then we also celebrated the completion of the mural project in the Tremont, at the back of the Tremont building, and revealed that beautiful parking lot project and celebrated with some live music and had a beautiful backdrop with the new mural in the back. We are also happy to see the poems installed in the park here just behind you. It's not quite ready, but we're getting closer, and we were able to stamp 11 different poems throughout the pocket park. This artist out of Cedar Rapids, Aquiniche, she was able to have conversations with community members and develop these 11 different poems that were stories about people's experience with the tornado, and ultimately created 11 poems from having those conversations. One of them is here, which I thought was fun to read. It says, "Do you remember July? One tree said to the other, 'We're bent but not broken, and we won't be bent for long.' To which the other said, 'We always find a way.'" In many of her conversations, as you can imagine, we talked a lot about resiliency and our way of coming back as a community. We had a little bit of delay, so this piece at the Marshalltown Performing Arts Center, formerly the MHS and Community Auditorium, on the high school grounds, is now going to be installed this year, but we selected, in partnership with the foundation and the school district, Scherzo, which is a piece by Stephen Johnson. We had almost 50 different artists across the country apply for this project. It was a really exciting project, and ultimately we're excited to bring the work of him to Iowa, the first piece he's done in Iowa, and it is a piece that will be celebrating music, and it's very colorful and vibrant, and will be very large in size that people will be able to engage with it and spend time in it. So we're excited to see that come once the snow melts and we see some warmer weather. And we were able to kick off the Arts and Culture Master Plan in partnership with your support and the Chamber. We were able to kick this process off late fall, of which both Gary and Gabe are serving on the steering committee. Phase 1 is officially complete, which was the discovery phase. We were able to secure over 500 surveys completed, which our goal was 400. Based on other surveys that have been done around the community, that was a number that seemed doable, and we were excited to go over that. The consultants also did 7 different focus groups, one of which was in Spanish and one which was in Burmese, and also held different interviews with some one-on-one and some two-on-one interviews with key stakeholders and leaders in the community. Overall, the process went really smoothly, and I have been nothing but impressed with the consultants and their dedication to Marshalltown and learning everything about our community and going above and beyond to dig into all of the plans that have already been completed and make sure that this is a process that is including everyone that is in our community. And looking ahead, we have the installation at the Performing Arts Center, like I mentioned, completing the Arts and Culture Master Plan. We have a few more murals planned, a couple that have not yet been confirmed, but 2 that are confirmed are at the VFW and the Orpheum. And we are also excited, we were awarded a grant with Union Pacific, and that is for neighborhood mural projects. So we will be doing engaging murals throughout neighborhoods in our community, focusing on low-income, high cultural diversity neighborhoods, of which we are looking to hire an artist that represents the communities that are in those neighborhoods, and be a really engaging process where the communities in those neighborhoods will be able to engage with the artists in the installation of it and really make it a celebration of all the communities that make up our community. We're excited, and I'm sure most of you know that we'll be moving to the Marshalltown Arts and Civic Center when that reopens. And ultimately, at the end of the master planning process with Group Creatives, the Alliance will be going through strategic planning with them, because we recognize that the master plan will influence the strategic plan of the Arts and Culture Alliance. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica. Hi.
Wow.
And an ad from YouTube.
Skip ad.
So with that, I'll end if anyone has any questions. I know that was really quick, but we had a really busy year, so it was a lot to cover. And we continuously appreciate your support and the work that we're doing in the community.
Any questions or comments up here?
Really great work.
Thank
Really
you.
great.
No
Thank you.
kidding.
Thank you.
It's fun driving around town. And,
Yeah.
and you'd be amazed at the number of people that approach me going, hey, can I get a mural too? And so I'll start sending you those inquiries.
Please do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Good report. Good report. On to resolutions. Item I and number 1, please.
Resolution accepting quote and authorizing the award of contract for the finance renovation project in the city of Marshalltown, Iowa, in the amount of $64,525.
Any motion to approve?
So moved, Your Honor.
Any second?
Second.
Very good. Discussion.
Good evening, Heather Thomas, Public Works. In your packets today are several quotes, a schematic of the finance remodel. This project was initially started prior to the tornado, with plans to do a little bit of it in-house and a little bit of it out-of-house. Due to the tornado, the pandemic, and derecho, the city has not made as much progress as we had hoped. So we evaluated our staff in that division. It's a 3-member division of our city staff, and realistically looked at doing the HVAC and electrical in-house and going out for quotes on the remainder of that remodel. We went out and requested 3 quotes. We received 2, and we are recommending the award to Hay Construction this evening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I know we get this in advance, and so does the public actually, but it'll be to make better space for the different people that we've got scattered around this building and
That
the
is
adjoining
correct.
buildings? Okay.
Yep, currently our finance department are on multiple floors within City Hall, and we're gonna try to bring those all together to make a better work floor.
All right. Do I get my office back?
Yes, actually, that would assist
Do I
with
really?
that.
All right. Well, I don't care, truly. It's been used better than if I were there all the time. Any questions for Heather? No public comment, or no comment up here. Any public comment about this one? Let's call the roll. It is going to be a long meeting.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Very good. That carried. The next item is, go ahead and read the next item.
resolution approving professional services agreement for building inspection services with Venstra and Kim, Inc.
Is there a motion to approve that one?
A motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Yep, Michelle Sponheimer, Housing Community Development Director. As you all are aware, our Chief Building Official, Scott Schneider, who was with the city for 31 plus years, he did not want any big farewells, so this is my only chance to say thank you to him publicly, but he did retire on January 14th. And so as part of that retirement, filling that vacancy, we have had discussions for strategic planning and prior to that about the opportunity to contract services for building inspections as a way for us to minimize that gap as we're going into something, get somebody in with the expertise that has that expertise already and to fulfill. So we still have a building inspector position, Pat Johnson, who is on staff with the city. So he is in-house, so we have that presence here, and it's not our intention to alter that with this contract. But this would help to fulfill code review for the plans, our big projects, issuing of permits, conducting a number of the inspections that we do associated with those permits, handling development review meetings as needed, and when we do get into some of our structural building issues that we've had, unfortunately, all too often these past few years, things like that as well. So we did put out a RFP for services. We received 2 proposals, and we had a selection interview team that met with both of those firms and ultimately made the recommendation to go with Veenstra and Kim Incorporated. V&K is kind of how we commonly refer. They have been assisting us with some interim work as well, so I think they'll be a good fit for us. Pending approval tonight, the staff will formalize that contract and get them on board as soon as possible so that we can work with things. Most of their fee will be established through building permits. A percentage of the building permit will go towards their work. We also will have an hourly rate as needed for non-permit type related items. So if we're doing other things that aren't necessarily tied to a specific building project, we'll have that flexibility. So I'd recommend approval, authorizing staff to be able to formalize that contract so we can get started with Veenstra and Kim.
Questions or comments?
Thank you.
Public comment? Roll call.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Very good. That carried. I thought I'd wait to see if it did or not, but in a Jackson County case in Maquoketa that I just handled, the judge just appointed that firm as a special master in a case. So I'm familiar with their credentials, and this will be interesting to see how that helps us. On to the next item then.
resolution approving professional services agreement for fire code compliance inspection services with Iowa Inspections, Inc.
Solicit a motion.
So moved, Your Honor.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Good evening, Dave Ryerson, Marshalltown Fire Department. So you have a memo in your packet, similar to the building codes inspections. We are asking the council to approve, or recommending the council approve, resolution to contract with Iowa Inspections Incorporated to assist us in doing fire code compliance inspections. So since I've been here as the chief from 2014, we have yet to be able to inspect all of the occupancies in the city that need to be inspected. We currently have over 500 commercial occupancies in town. Of those 500, 231 require what's called an operational permit. So that means they have a process or a business that requires an annual inspection. We have, in my 7 years here, we have yet to been able to get through all of the operational permits, let alone all of the commercial occupancies. We thought we had a plan worked out to provide some inspection assistance to the fire marshal, but that fell through. And with the upcoming building and things that are going to go on in the community here in the next couple of years, I need the assistance in getting the inspections done. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you would have.
Questions or comments? Public comment? Roll call.
Thompson,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Very good, that carried as well. On to item J, ordinances. Would you tell us what the first one is, please?
Ordinance 15036, amending the established boundaries of election wards and precincts in the city of Marshalltown, Iowa, repealing conflicting ordinances and providing for the effective date of same. First reading.
Floor is open for a motion.
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks. Discussion?
So our precinct maps were submitted to the Iowa Secretary of State, and they were accepted. However, they did find an error in the first word precinct that needed corrected. There was a reference to Center Street, and it should have been 3rd Avenue. So you'll see in your packet the revised ordinance with the highlighted correction. And staff is requesting a waiver of the second and third readings.
Any discussion about this one? Any public comment? Let's call the roll on the motion first and then see if we want to speed it up after with it.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson.
No.
That carried. Is there a motion to waive the second and third readings?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I don't think we need discussion. Let's call the roll.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
Walker.
Yes.
That carried as well. Okay. On to the next motion, or next item.
Ordinance 15037 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa, Chapter 151, Moving Buildings, first reading.
Floor is open for a motion.
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Your Honor, this is the action coming forward from the discussion item at the last meeting, which updates the application process and requirements for the moving building permit that's issued through Public Works.
Any questions or comments about it? Seemed pretty straightforward. Any public comment about this one? Well, let's vote on this one as well.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie
Yes.
Very good. Carried as well. On to item K, discussion items. The first one of which is creation of an urban renewal area 7 North 3rd Avenue and Highway 14.
Yes, Your Honor. So this is a recommendation that initially came out of the Highway 14 corridor study, and is one that is sort of necessitated by, this discussion is necessitated by other things happening in the very near future. One being a rezoning ordinance that is going to implement a multi-use classification along this corridor, which I should mention is basically Bromley Street North, to the corporate limits, essentially, capturing the area to the west of North 3rd Avenue, being Ethington's and Carl of Marshalltown, and then that far northern property that I don't think it has a current active use, and then extending over into the avenues all the way down to Marion Street where it picks up Bruin Manufacturing as well. And so in addition to the rezoning and this area being part of that rezoning, Carl of Marshalltown has also been talking with the city about development plans that they have, and they have requested some financial assistance. Financial assistance in the way of TIF does have to be provided by being stated as a project in an urban renewal plan. At this time, I'm not here to present you anything tonight. I still have some numbers I need to crunch from them with the information that they've provided to come back to you on February 14th, assuming you want to move forward with this. But tonight, what I'm looking for is a basically just a motion to direct staff to continue to work on developing an urban renewal plan and setting this urban renewal area. I should mention this is not a short process. We have to put together a fairly lengthy legal description, which can't be done in-house, has to go to an outside firm to do that, as well as then working with our attorneys at Dorsey and Whitney to really put that plan together. Once we have something that we're all agreed on, we have to set a public hearing, and then basically 30 days or 4 weeks later, hold the public hearing. So there's a lot of time that's built into this as well. And in between that time of setting the public hearing and holding the public hearing, we have to hold consultation sessions with our other taxing entities. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about what is proposed, and go from there.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Jessica, what advantages does the housing have from Marion Street north, being in an urban renewal area? What does that do for them?
It probably doesn't do anything specific for any of the properties. It's mostly, it's basically saying that this is an area where we see redevelopment possible. So it doesn't affect anybody's tax rates or anything like that. It just really puts it in an area where if somebody were to come along and say that they would like to redevelop in this area, we have the ability to talk about incentives that would be available in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
If you're looking for a motion, I would make a motion for city staff to proceed with this plan.
That would help. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. Any further discussion up here before we open it to the public? Open to the public.
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue. So when you create this TIF district, you're going to latch on to the first right of refusal on all the tax increment over the date where you create it. So over time, since we have no sunset on our TIF districts, you're going to capture more and more money, which then you will take out of, if you use it, you'll take out of the school and the county's budgets. So you need to keep that in mind.
Any other public comment? Let's call the roll.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Very good. That carried, and the staff has direction. The next item is to request to sell city-owned lots.
Yes, Your Honor. So you had recently, you just adopted the policy that we had discussed last week in the consent agenda tonight. And I was not joking when I said I had properties that we could sell right away. We're in a perfect position to move forward with some of that, with it being a 3-week between council meeting type of situation. And so all of these properties are ones that I have had one or more individuals contact me about. They are all vacant lots resulting from our dangerous and dilapidated buildings. building program. And so this would certainly help clear out the number of properties that we would be looking to have to mow, as well as, potentially still be shoveling snow in kind of a March timeframe. But I am proposing that we use the sealed bid method, that we would have sealed bids due on February 9th, so giving 2 weeks for us to get notices out there in the paper and our website as well as letting those who had contacted me know what is happening as well. Setting the public hearing on the 14th of February, our next regular council meeting, and then holding the public hearings on the 28th. And then that would leave the month of March basically to convey a number of quitclaim deeds for these properties. So I'm just looking for your permission to move forward with directing the sale of these properties by a sealed bid process.
I'd solicit discussion or comments or a motion to have staff proceed.
If I may, Your Honor.
May.
Jessica, would it be possible for the city to also contact by mail or whatever adjacent property owners of the sale? Not everybody gets a TR, not everybody goes to our website.
Yeah, we can do that in the cases where it's not already an adjacent property owner. We can definitely do that.
Yes, thank you.
Good idea.
Your Honor, may I have the floor, please?
You may.
I don't like the idea of a sealed bid. I don't think our job as a city council is to gouge the taxpayers of Marshalltown. We had one incident last year where there were 2 bids on a property. One was for $500, one was for $8,000. The person overpaid for that property. I don't think it takes too much staff time to have open bids in council chambers at a set time on the 9th, if that's the date you want to go with them due. And then people are able to change their bids, and you'd have a true auction where the public would set the value of the property. The sealed bid process to me is just not a good thing for us, a public image issue, and it's not what we're in business to do. So I would caution us to approve the sale of the properties, let Jessica sell them, but not through sealed bid.
Other comments or questions up here?
Your Honor.
Yes.
I guess I disagree with a little bit because a property is worth whatever somebody's willing to pay. So if they're willing to submit a bid for a given dollar amount, then they're willing to pay said dollar amount, which is what the property is worth. So I would also argue that I don't think I want an auction house in city council chambers. And so I would be against that because I don't think that's the business that we're in either.
Other council comments before we open it to the public? Any public comment?
Dan Oswald, 1909 Summit Street. I've purchased some of these properties in the past. I just want to make sure that of your 4 options, everybody's given a fair shot at the properties. So I don't really care how it goes, how you guys decide to sell them. That's up to you, but I think everybody in the public should have the right to bid on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Okay. I don't think I called for a motion to direct staff, did I? I could do that. Or ask for a consensus to another option.
I'd be happy to make a motion to use a sealed bid to sell these.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Your Honor.
All right. Roll call.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie Hoff,
No.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Very good. That one carried. I suppose we did get $7,500 from the higher bidder in that past one that I don't remember about. Next item is discussion about the band levy. And I forgot to say that last motion did carry. Staff has direction. Diana?
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. So basically, the rest of the agenda items all have to do with our FY23 budget. And this is one item regarding that budget for a band levy. So tonight, we have two guests, Jody Britnell and Karen Egenezer. So if you'd like to come forward, and they present for you. I need to reveal that I am a member of the band, but I do not take any paychecks.
Do we get to know what you play? Clarinet, trumpet?
French horn.
French horn. Okay. Oh, my sister plays that.
I'm Jody Britnell, and I'm a longtime member of the Marshalltown Municipal Band. The council has been approving an 11,000 property tax levy for the past several years. It is used to pay for the band director, musicians, music, percussion equipment, and audio equipment. We had a total of 17 rehearsals and concerts in the summer of 2021. We have approximately 42 band members ranging in age from age 16 to 80. Don Peterson celebrated his 80th birthday last summer, and he's still playing his trumpet. We had all of our concerts at the new 13th Street Park, which was amazing. We averaged probably 50 to 75 people on a Thursday night, depending on how hot it was. And we would appreciate your continued support for a long-time standing Marshalltown Municipal Band. And do you have any questions?
Any questions or comments? Very good. Thank you. Does staff need direction in the form of a motion on this one?
This all leads to item 6, so we'll talk more about that when we get there. The
Okay.
maximum property tax levy.
Okay. Let's go on to the next item of discussion. We'll revisit this one at number 6. Transit fund is next up.
Good evening, Heather Thomas, Public Works. So the purpose of this discussion item is just to provide an update on the transit system, generate discussion, comments, then get some confirmation on the direction to go with the transit levy. I would like to introduce Kevin, who's back here and will wave. He is the supervisor and director of our transit division, and he may come up and help answer some questions that you have as well. Wanted to give you a little bit of a background. Back in fiscal year 21, the transit levy was just over 30 cents. As a result of receiving funding through the federal stimulus package of CARES Act, we reduced that transit levy for fiscal year 22 to just above 16 cents. And the purpose of that, those CARES Act dollars, was to help offset some of that loss of ridership that happened as a result of the pandemic. The city of Marshalltown was a year ahead of the deduct in ridership as a result of the tornado. And we actually lost a lot of our ridership, about 25% following the tornado. So these funds that have come in through CARES, CRISA, and ARPA have been really beneficial for the city. We now know what all those dollars are going to be, and we've kind of projected on how long those will help sustain us until we can get our ridership numbers back up. Right now, it's looking like we can get through fiscal year 24 at a level of about $200,000 a year from those one-time funds to help with our ridership numbers. So in the memo, if you guys have had a chance to review it, it goes through several of the financial implications and the time delay from ridership numbers, locally determined income, to when those will impact the state and federal funds coming back to the city. We also have a paratransit relationship with Region 6, and those expenses will continue to go up. So on the second page of the memo, which I can pull up for those. Oops. Did I go to the wrong one? One more. We have listed several options to look at what the tax levy amount would be and what that would result in. As I mentioned, right now our current levy is in the 16 cents area. Previously it was in the 30 cents area. So we're looking at the expenses and funds on an annual basis, and at a proposed rate of 27 cents, we would be projecting basically a break-even fiscal year 23. And again, our stimulus money falls off on year 24. So we're kind of trying to bridge that gap until then. So that was a very, very brief introduction, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So if ridership doesn't come back, what are we going to have to do in the future? Just decrease the options?
Yeah, so good news, ridership is coming back. For rough numbers, fiscal year just prior to the tornado, we were at about 100,000 ridership. At the low point, after the tornado, we were about 75,000. Once the pandemic hit, we got down to the low 60,000s. Right now, we're projecting about 90,000 for this year, and kudos to Kevin. Again, he worked very hard and he created a pink route that helps with some park and rec functions, and that's a large result of why we're going to be looking back at the 90,000. So it is looking like they are coming back, but again, doing this levy adjustment now gives us the next year and two to kind of see where those ridership numbers fall and make a better plan moving forward.
Other questions or comments up here?
Your Honor?
Yes.
So when you say ridership of 90,000, are you saying that that's how many individuals get on a bus in Marshalltown every month?
That would be an annual ridership.
Okay. So in a year, 90,000 people from Marshalltown at any point get on the bus and go somewhere.
I believe that is correct, and I'm going to look at Kevin and make sure I'm saying the right.
Kevin Pigores, Transit Administrator. That is correct. So 90,000 is trips.
Okay.
So if a person from the vet's home gets on at IVH, goes to Walmart, that's one trip. And then from Walmart back to IVH, that's another. So that would be two trips. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I want to apologize to Heather and Kevin. I did buy a vehicle last year, so that's why their ridership went down, so. So I'm sorry.
And Kevin, by the way, your name has been mentioned a few times in the meetings in the last 6 months, and always favorably. So thank you for what you're doing for that department. We know that because we have to attend all these meetings, and you don't. Any other comments or questions by the council before we open it up to the public?
Your Honor, I just want to say one more thing if I can.
You sure may.
There's more to this than just his set routes. I don't know if you guys are aware. They will stop, the drivers will stop at any intersection or mid-block if they see, don't tell Kevin, but they'll stop at mid-block. They're going to a couple major places. The buses are rotating through every half hour. I mean, when I was riding all the time, this was just incredible. I mean, for a small town to have this service. And I have to be honest, I've always wondered how they do it with the limited funds. But at the same time, I've never seen Kevin drive a bus, though. So
I can attest he's driven a lot of buses in the last 6 months.
Thank you. Public comment? Otherwise, let's see if anybody wants to move to approve the suggestion for staff.
I don't know that we need that, Your Honor,
Okay.
the number 5, 4 and 5 are really leading into what's
Folded
proposed
into
in
that.
6.
Okay.
And that's where we'll have the discussion and motion.
I'll try to hold my horses, especially when we're at number 5. Let's go to number 5. For your 23 budget and levies for employee, oh no, I skipped it. Yeah, no, for employee benefits, police and fire, retirement and emergency fund discussion.
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. So when we're building our budget, we of course put in the new wages based on increases, which affects FICA tax and IPERS. And it also, we also made an increase for health insurance, 10% increase, because that's what it was this January. So we just made the assumption it was going to be that for next January as well. So then you have workers' comp increases because your wages increase. You have the police and fire retirement That changes every year, and that's set by the state. So this kind of gives you where we'll end up for a fund balance in these funds. Employee benefit fund is going to, if we levy for what we say in option on the next agenda item, then we would end up with about $3.3 million in employee benefits fund. The city does self-insure their health insurance. For police and fire retirement, about $611,000, and then the emergency fund, $458. Normally we zero that out. I must have made a slight mathematical error in there, so I'll correct it before the next time if you want me to. So we go to the other agenda items. So on all these reports that you see tonight, they're all set up the same. They're out of our Tyler software. So the first column is our FY21 activity. The next item is the budget that you approved last March for this current fiscal year. That's what was adopted. The third column is the year-to-date through December. The next column is what we're requesting to amend for the current year budget, and then the final column is our FY23 budget request. So for the employee benefits with health insurance, unemployment, workers' comp, retirement payouts, we're saying we need $2.9 million. We have $2.9 million in expenses, and between the property tax levy and the utility excise tax, that equals that same number. We also put in money for the backfill. The legislature does appropriate that every year, so we're hoping that they continue to do that. So that's what that number is. And then we go on to the next fund, which is the police fire retirement. Same thing. What we need is 1.2 million. Comes through as property tax and excise tax. We do get some backfill off of that and a little bit of interest. And then we have the emergency fund, which is 27 cents per $1,000. That's the maximum that we can take, and that helps with just regular operating items over in the general fund. So any questions on any of this?
Questions or comments? Public comment? I hold my horses till the next item.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the property tax levy. So a few years back, the legislature said, well, you should be telling the public in dollars what you're increasing your levy by, not just the percentage. Because in the past, we've usually tried to keep the levy percentage the same, but it does increase our dollars that we get. So, so the first column is last year's levy. So our taxable valuations was $908 million. And this year it's $926 million. So we got an increase in valuations. The regular general is always $8.10. So if you look at last year, we've got 7.3 million. This year, just because the valuations went up, keeping the same rate, we're at $7.5 million. And then coming down to the transit. This current fiscal year, we've levied $150,000. Transit is requesting a return of pre-COVID dollars of $250,000. The next item is the Marshalltown Arts and Civic Center, formerly known as Fisher Community Center. They've stayed the same at $100,000. Our liability and property self-insurance costs, we don't self-insure our liability, but that's just the title of this. So this is a 12% increase from last fiscal year. So what we adopted, we pay our premium that's due by April 1st. We're seeing an increase of 12% this current April, and then we booked another 12% increase for next year. That's based on what ICAP told us. Support of local emergency management goes from 32,000 to 33,000. This is the number that they reported that they would be billing us for. Emergency fund levy, that's at 27 cents levy that we just talked about on the last agenda item. Police and fire retirement, also the last agenda item. And FICA and IPERS, and then other employee benefits. So if the valuations would stay the same, sorry, I'll just reset it. If we kept the same dollars as last year, but we use our valuations from this year, then our rate would be 13.10, and you can see last year it was 13.35. So it would look like it would drop. But we can't survive on the same dollars as last year with everything increasing. So with that, we need $12.5 million, which is a 3.49% increase in just these items alone. So I wanted to show you what we're actually proposing for the overall levy, because I think that's what you're most interested in. So staff is proposing that we keep the same levy rate as last year. So the difference is made up in these other items that we haven't already talked about. So it's the voted items, which is the band at $11,000 and the library at $250,000. The library is a set levy at 27 cents. And then the capital improvements and the debt service levy are not on the maximum property tax dollar levy, our hearing that we're going to request. And then to get to the same level as last year, we're going to use requesting fund balance out of our local option sales tax property relief fund of $366,000 to get there. So even though the maximum property tax hearing is the percentage is going to go up, we're going to get more dollars, the overall rate will not, once we factor in all those other levies. So does anybody have any questions? I will need a motion for the hearing for February 14th for the maximum property tax dollars.
Well, let's call for the motion and second first, and then have that discussion of questions and comments after that.
The motion is listed on the agenda. The language that's needed is listed on the agenda.
Your Honor, I would so move to motion to set the public hearing.
Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Very good. Just to set a hearing, I don't think we need a lot of discussion. Let's go ahead and call a roll on it.
Thompson?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Hoop?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Lottie
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Very good. Public hearing on February 14, and then further discussion or comments.
Your Honor,
Yes.
can you explain just in a little bit more detail the 25% increase on liability, property, and self-insurance cost? You elaborated that we don't self-insure, but it's going from 215 to 293, and what was the reason for that?
So because of the floods and tornadoes and derechos across the state, the ICAP insurance pool is raising rates. So they informed us to count on 12% of this year for this April, and then another 12% for next year.
Okay.
And when we calculated the 12% for our amended budget, we took what we actually paid in March of '21.
Thank you.
Sure.
And ICAP is kind of a self-insurance in terms of a lot of municipalities like us and counties around the state use that organization to pay the premiums to it, and then it hires the lawyers to handle the lawsuits against us if a bus runs into a car or
Right.
something like that.
Right, so it's a pool for all the municipal governments if you want to participate.
And it includes another tornado, derecho, God forbid.
Right.
Or flood, yeah.
So we're not specifically being penalized for our claims because of the tornado and derecho. It's statewide.
Realistically, statistically, probably we benefited from other cities funding it when we got hit with the double whammy.
Right. Yeah.
Your Honor?
Yes.
May I?
You may.
Diana, what other options besides pulling, you said 336,000 from local option sales tax?
About 366.
365,
775.
Oh, 366, okay.
Yeah.
What other options are there to that?
Well, the fund balances that are in the other levies, like the police and fire retirement, FICA and IPERS, other employee benefits, you could use those as well to buy down the levy rate.
Don't we have another,
Or you could use the local option sales tax.
well, don't we have
Council
another fund that's
designated.
sitting with $1 million in it that actually should go back to the taxpayers?
I'm not sure what you're
Okay, I'll check
referring to.
something, get back to you. What is the balance of the local option sales tax account?
It's coming up in the next agenda item
Okay.
too.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or public comment? Okay, and you still need a motion that we haven't called for yet, right?
We need a motion for the public hearing on February 14th.
Oh, we got that done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
voted.
So, on to the next discussion item then?
Yeah, so this is the actual budget form that is submitted for the long-term debt. So it indicates the name of the debt, the amount of issuance, the principal amount that is due in fiscal year '23, the interest amount that's due, and the total principal and interest, and then our registration fees. And then from that, we subtract off what TIF will be funding and any enterprise funds. And then we subtract off the property tax relief. So we're estimating $4.2 million in local option sales tax in fiscal year '23. So 78% of that goes right towards property tax relief. So that'd be $3.2 million. And then to get us at the same levy rate as prior years, we need to kick in another $365,000, which we do still have money for in the local option sales tax property tax section, which is next on the agenda. So is there any questions on this one? Okay. So now we'll come talk about local option sales tax. So surprisingly, we had originally budgeted 3.692 million. When we got our reconciliation payment in November, which is basically the state paying us our other 5% that was collected for fiscal year '21, we came up with another $500,000. So now we're projecting $4.6 million for the current fiscal year. Is that too small to see? Okay. And then we had sale proceeds of $247,000, and then projecting interest at $56,000. And then we have all of our expenses that the council approved. So they come down to the end of this fiscal year at over $4 million. So then we come into next fiscal year. So again, projecting $4.2 million. 78% of that comes to property tax relief, and the other 22% is for council designated. Then we have a little bit of interest. So again, what I just showed you on the last agenda item, the buy down the property tax is at 78%. And then to get us at the same rate, we're taking another $365,000. That still leaves a balance of $1.4 million in local option property tax relief. And then for council designated, in prior years, we've asked to at least maintain cash flow reserve of 15% of our expenses, and last year you raised it to 16%. So to keep that 16%, we need another $129,000 that we'd like you to approve, if you so desire, for a cash flow reserve. So those are for emergency purposes. It would take, a vote of the public to take any money out of there. And then we booked in $5,000 for fireworks. I wasn't sure how much you wanted to give this year.
50.
And then we have a project that you already committed to on Edgewood Extension, and then also there was an item on the agenda for the survey.
What's part of this discussion?
Okay, part of the discussion. So we put that in there as well. And then there used to be a separate section for capitals, and so you can see we're spending that all out, and by the end of fiscal year 23.
Your Honor,
Yes.
that was my question. Can you go back up to that balance? At the top? Why are we carrying $1 million balance? Why don't we give that $1 million back to the tax? That's the million I was asking about.
Okay.
Why can't we give that $1 million back to the taxpayers?
Well, in the past, we've always tried to kind of maintain the same amount, so we're not spiking up and down with
Okay,
property
but
tax.
look what we're doing by maintaining the same amount. Go to the bottom, we're actually increasing that.
Well, you're, okay.
I was gonna say, so you're sort of getting ahead of us, because that, seeing that we have 1.5 million in fund balance there is concerning to us. And so we've consulted legal counsel about what does that look like in terms of property tax relief. Does property tax relief mean that we have to specifically use it towards our property tax levy? And the reality is, no, you don't. We have a list of projects that's going to be before you that is going to exceed what we could borrow, but the intention would be to borrow for it, so you can actually allocate this for capital projects that we would be borrowing for, because but for this money, we would be putting it on our tax levy. And so this is an option for that. We certainly do not recommend reallocating all fund balance for it, but anything that would really come about that would be something that would not go on the tax levy, that we would not borrow for, would be something that we can start using this fund balance for. So that's certainly a recommendation that we're going to look at, if that is something, if the project list that we have for borrowing needs is something you don't want to adjust, then we do have some other ways to try and meet those gaps. So it certainly is an option, and that's what we would recommend, is that if there are projects that need to be done, that we reduce this balance. I would still say that we would probably want to maintain typically like a 20% balance. This has been very, very helpful in helping us keep our tax levy constant. I think this would be the 5th year in a row that we would not be looking at any tax levy increase, which is pretty significant when you look at some of our comparable cities. So we do have a proposal for you on that one, but we're not recommending that we buy down the overall property tax levy beyond where we are.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
The problem I have with that is that's not what we sold to the taxpayers years ago when we changed this whole percentage, where there was percentage and there was council designated funds. I mean, if you pull, in my opinion, if you pull the people on the street, That 78% is going to their property taxes. And for us to bank $1 million and hold $1 million every year as a slush fund, in my eyes and their eyes, I think that's, I don't know another word for it. I just think it's wrong. I think we sold that to the taxpayers, that was going to be 78% paying down their property taxes, not for us to do other things with. So I just have a problem. I think this is the year to make that right, is to apply that $1 million to the property tax relief. Let's start riding that roller coaster instead of holding this thing level. Because I don't think the taxpayers really, everything's going up. They don't understand. We're really not we're holding the rate level, but their taxes are still going up because of everybody else. So I'd like to see us give that $1 million to the taxpayers instead of holding it. Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Any
Your Honor.
other comments or questions?
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Gary, I agree with you. I don't know that I necessarily agree that the tax levy is where I'd spend that $1 million. My first thing that came to head was streets. Honestly, when you talk about reinvesting into the infrastructure, and I get where you're coming from. I also think that a little bit of stability is nice when it comes to that. When you look at costs increasing across the board and anywhere and everywhere, and I don't know, as an individual property owner, I don't want my taxes going down 5% one year and then up 20 the next year and then back down or whatever else. So I get the stability comment, and I'm on board with that. If we're going to sit there and spend it, though, I think I agree that we need to spend it wisely. And talking about streets and how we put more money into that from road infrastructure and otherwise back to where we need to be versus where we are is, I don't know, that's at least where my alarm bells went off.
Thanks, Mr. Eisel. Anybody else at the council level?
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
I see what you're saying, but just being on council for the year, you know as well as I do, things pop up out of nowhere. And if we have to have funding for something and we've already allocated everything else, what do? We always go to the local option sales tax. And, carrying $1 million balance, I don't like the idea of property taxes bouncing up and down either.
Your Honor, may I?
Yeah, unless anybody else wants to. I guess under our manual, we're supposed to solicit others too. So anybody else up here at the council level that hasn't spoken yet before we turn it back to Gary? You may. Go ahead, Gary.
I think we're missing the point. We have the balance in the 22%. This is the 78% that was promised to the taxpayers. We're carrying a balance in their property relief percentage of the local option sales tax. We have our own balance of the 22%. Am I missing something here?
Yeah, the middle column is the council designated piece.
Yeah. So we're carrying almost $2 million there. That's our slush fund. This million is part of the 78 that's been sitting out there forever for the taxpayers' property tax relief, was the way it was presented in those elections.
And that's what we have been using it for, property tax relief. So if you look at this year, we're buying it down with 365,000. If you doubled it, you 700,000. It's going to go fast. But that, we'll do whatever the council tells us to do.
Your Honor. I mean, the thing is, we have a lot of need to spend it, and the taxpayer is the one who foots the bill. So I think whether we pay it now or we spend it on something we're going to spend the money on anyway in 6 months, I don't know that it makes any difference. So I'd be in favor of keeping it similar to what we've done in the past.
I think everybody's had an opportunity up here to speak. Let's open it to the public. Nobody is rushing up to the microphone. Oh, sorry.
Dan Oswald, 1909 Summit Street. I just want some clarification on the projects that this goes towards. Is this going towards, like you said, with city streets? Is this going towards some of the public-private partnerships that are going on? Because I know I don't want my property taxes funding somebody else's developments in town. That'd be concerning to me. If it's going towards streets, I understand you guys having that discretion, but please use it wisely.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Your Honor, can I ask a legal question?
Yeah.
This was a levy that was presented to the taxpayers, right? That started this whole thing? Legally, can we, they voted on a 78-22 split. Legally, can we use that money for anything else besides property tax relief?
Yes, I had reached out to Lynch Dallas. This is something they've seen in many of their other clients where if it is truly providing relief from the property tax. I'll give you an example. So we're going to talk about borrowing $10 million here later this year. We could set that first payment in a way where you could eat up pretty much everything that you have there and provide basically property tax relief in that form. It doesn't have to be directly on the tax levy. Keeping things off the tax levy is also property tax relief.
So if I heard it right, Lynch Dallas has given the legal opinion that we're doing it
Yes.
illegally.
And Diana did the second step of due diligence of checking with our auditors to see if this would be something that they would find to be an inappropriate use. That was not what they said. They said this is fine, no questions on their part either. So to clarify my example, so we're going to talk about borrowing $10 million. We typically won't close on that bond until December 1st of 2022 as a way of basically avoiding a first interest payment as we pay interest on our bonds June 1st and December 1st. So we essentially are just carrying principal until June 1st when we do have our first interest payment, I believe, June 1st of 2023. We'd have our first interest payment. And so we can schedule things that if you want to use this money to pay principal ahead of when it would actually show up because we hadn't levied for it, we can certainly do that if that's a concern. But this money doesn't have to just directly show up on that property tax worksheet that Diana brought up. It can show up in other ways. So it doesn't have to just show up on here. So we can have further conversations about that if indeed what we're presenting is something that is acceptable for a majority of you. But that's what we're proposing. If this balance of 1.5 million is a problem, there are other ways to do it than specifically buying down the property tax levy at this point.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet. Okay. At this point, are we calling for a motion to move forward?
Well, I need some, I need some direction about if what we have here is what you want. So are you willing to spend the $365,000 to buy down the property tax levy so it stays the same?
Well, if we need that kind of direction, let me call for a motion that would approve that.
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
I think we've had enough discussion. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie Hoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes. Okay.
And then the next item is the cash flow reserve. Do you want to maintain it at 16% of general fund expenses?
Is there a motion to do that?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Roll call?
Oh, Your Honor, I have a question for Diana.
You may.
Diana, refresh my memory. Last year, we raised that, right?
Right, you went from 15%.
And I thought we were going to try and raise that 1% a year to get it to, was there a set number you wanted to get that to?
20.
20. So we're taking a year off?
Is what our policy says.
So you were asking us to take a year off?
Well, depending on how we spend local option sales tax later in the meeting, no, you can fund it at a higher level. It'd be another
172?
172, yeah.
Do you want to have that discussion now, or you want to wait till we talk about?
I'd like to have it now, so I know how to put it in the budget system.
I mean, I would say take the 172, keep, because we had a long discussion about this last year, if I remember, that there was positive reasons we wanted to get that to 20%. And we talked about a 1% a year, if I remember. Is that correct?
Well, you committed to 1% last year to increase.
I would say we put 172,000 in it.
Just remember that it takes a vote to get it back out.
Is that
a vote by the citizens.
I understand.
Yeah.
But there was, like I said, there was long discussion.
Yeah.
about there was real reasons why we needed to get that to 20%.
Your Honor,
Yes.
that's incremental 172, not adjusting it
Above
from
that.
123 to
Right.
172.
I did hear a motion to make it 172,000. Is there a second to that motion?
Well, is it in addition?
Oh, I'm sorry. There was.
Just a quick summary, what were some of the reasons why we wanted to get that up to 20?
Well, when Moody's looks at your bond rating, they look at cash. Cash is king. So, you know, our general fund 001 is dwindling. So by having it in the reserve, they add those all together. So they look at your reserve, they look at your road use tax, they look at your other benefit funds as well.
So in the long range, would it be cheaper for us to, in your opinion, to put more money in that fund to save on future interest rates?
It's one thing that they look at. Like, again, since your 001's coming down, it'd be nice to increase that cash reserve. And they like that it's restricted, so we can't get it back out.
It would be $295,340 to get to a 17% cash flow reserve.
If nothing else, I mean, because we're still in discussion about general fund 001, it could be less than that depending on the actions taken later in the meeting. But yes, approximately that.
Can we vote for a percentage without an exact dollar amount?
Sure.
Now, do we have a motion on the floor right now?
As I understand, we do, and it is based on an exact dollar amount of 172,000. Did I get that right?
No, it was before that.
On the proposal of 16% funding at 123,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I misread that. Yeah, so it is on the floor right now. The motion pending is for the 16%.
Amended.
You made the 17%?
No, I can't make a motion.
He could
because
move to
there-
amend, but right now the pending motion is 16%.
I recommend just voting on that motion, and if that fails, then you vote to have another motion for a different percent.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's call the roll on 16%.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
No.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff.
No.
Okay, that carried unless it required any super majority vote. On to the next item.
So I put in $5,000 for fireworks. Is that what you want? This past July, it was over 12,000. So I just kind of wanted to know what you wanted to do.
Your Honor, was all that 12,000 from the city, or was that from other donations as well? Because it was probably the best show that I've seen in Marshalltown.
That was just the city's portion.
Do you know how much private money was added to that?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, there was over 13,000. It was $25,000 show, wasn't it?
No, you did 30.
Was it 30?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a show. Yeah, well, that's right, because it was $10,000 a minute.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's not right. That's $1,000 a minute. Your Honor.
Yes.
Councilman Snyder, the 5,000 was the limit for several years. I don't remember how long. And then last year, because of COVID, we wanted to do something, and that's why we bounced it up to 12.
Your Honor.
Yes.
And we did the 12.5 as part of a match, assuming they were going to be able to raise it too, right? So that was
Yeah, it
kind
was
of
a
some of
match.
the. If you can, we'll gladly match up to the 12.5 or whatever it was, 12.
I think it was 12.
12.
Yeah.
12.5 is what it was.
Your Honor, so I heard Councilman Isom say he wanted to be on the fundraising committee this year.
I knew your hearing was going.
Yeah.
But we really don't have You probably would like a motion to approve it right now for fireworks to know if it's 5 or more.
Yes.
Floor is open to make a motion to some dollar amount.
Let me put it this way. I can budget any number and then come back and you can decide on how much later. So you're just giving me authority to spend up to X dollars, but when we discuss it later, we can always bring it back.
Lisa appreciates coming to the city council meetings, and she'll come and make a presentation and a request.
But for now, I just need a budget number.
Right. Well, I don't usually
Sure.
make. Yeah.
I would move to budget at the $5,000 mark then.
Or a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Let's call the roll.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Very good. You know what to budget for now. I do predict that in June, depending on what the weather and conditions are like and how much Lisa's been able to raise again, we can revisit this one.
Correction, Your Honor, Mr. Lottiehoff was the top fundraiser.
And we didn't even hit up any lawyers.
Well,
That won't
we're usually
happen.
looking for money, you know.
We will be this year.
And then the final request, I did get a quote on the National Community Survey. We did this in August of 2020 and fall of 2020. I think it was more September through November that we did that. And so we'd be looking to do that again here in basically 2022, the same time frame, so that we have some ways to compare data. This is through Polco. It is a national community survey, which means that it's done in a number of other communities, and we get benchmarking data to kind of give us a sense of where we rank against everybody else. They have said that they would lock in the price now at what it was basically 2 years ago if we were to go ahead and sign an agreement but not bill us until we actually got down to that point. So that's where I'm looking to see if we can include that into the local option sales tax spending for this next fiscal year.
Questions or comments about the survey?
Your Honor.
Yes.
I like this. We talked about key performance indicators with regards to community and otherwise, and how we effectively gauge on our success and implementation across projects or otherwise. I think this is a good practice, but at least have a comparable side by side and be able to determine moving forward if it makes sense to continue doing it into the future. But I think this is a good way to evaluate if this is a viable option for future use.
Thank you. Other council comment?
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
What is the method that they use to harvest their data? Are they contacting our constituency? Are they gathering up tax information? What's going into
Postal codes. So basically, the post office has a number of different postal codes for mailing within the city of Marshalltown. They basically randomly select. They have a target number that based on our population that they try to select. So they select that many addresses and do mailings to all of them. And then we know anything that's a vacant property that gets returned to us and gets reduced off the number. So then they have an idea of based on who's responded either in paper copy or online, and an online code that's only given to the people who are getting that it's truly a random sample that is available basically per household essentially in the community.
Do you have any sense of what the sample size was from the previous work they did?
I think it was like 27 or 2,800, but I can get back to you on that with what it was for sure.
Yeah, I would appreciate some information regarding the information you're getting out of that report, who's participating in it, because 2,700 doesn't seem like a really robust response rate for $20,000 to me.
So 2,700 was how many they sent to. Our response rate was 18%, and I believe we were in like the 450 range for responses. So we do have all of this on our website. The thing about it is, it doesn't give people the ability to self-select. So it's really getting to those people who you might never, ever come in contact with your own survey or otherwise. It's really that randomness that is providing sort of the purity of the sample, basically, in terms of what we're getting for information. On our website as well, we also do have, I won't go to it now, but the back of that has some really great cross-tabulation tables where it breaks things, answers down by ward, it breaks things down by gender, it breaks things down by age, by retirement status or work status, by ethnicity and race. And so there is a lot of, I think, good data that came out of it. I would say we're still underrepresented on the Hispanic population, just given what we know came from the census. But it is still very good information to have that does have some value to it. There really aren't, there's a few other firms that are out there, but I don't know that they're doing it for cheaper than $20,000 based on what it is. The postage alone, because there's technically, I think, 4 mailings along the way. I think it started with the postcard, then the survey, then maybe 2 more postcards. So there's a lot of mailing that happens to try and get people to respond.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Jessica, how did we pay for it 2 years ago?
With local option
Okay.
sales tax.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet. Other comments or questions by the council? Need a separate vote on that issue as well?
If you could at this point, that'd be, thanks.
Okay, I'd solicit a motion to approve.
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
No second.
Thank you. Let's call the roll.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
No.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie
Yes.
Very good. Staff has direction there. Next item then?
You voted no.
Okay. We are going to talk about general fund reductions at this point, and rather than just go through the spreadsheet and the memo, I did put together a presentation to just kind of spice things up a little bit and make it not so boring. So, as we talked about at the last meeting, we do have a deficit in the general fund. This amount of $494,737 is less than what we talked about at the last meeting, thanks to catching that we had underestimated parking revenue, we believed, as well as then Michelle confirming that her 2 grant employees can be funded by those grants through September of 2023. So that changed the deficit. And I will also share that your actions tonight, by allowing us to negotiate a contract with Veenstar and Kim, has made this number even lower. Michelle and I had discussed earlier today that we believe that there's another $26,500 worth of expense that we can reduce out of this deficit, out of the general fund budget, reducing the deficit to a new number of $468,237. So we wanted to look and see what options there were and kind of how those broke down and where we were really putting most of the funds coming from. Local option sales tax, as you can see there, is where we're having the heaviest recommendation, but department cuts are also recommended at 19% as well to close this deficit. I want to go through these items kind of item by item, talk just a little bit more about them, interrupt me to ask any questions that you might have as we go, and then kind of at the end, I have things kind of totaling in sort of the staff recommendation, and then we can either start putting some numbers in like what the council would want. I've got some columns there, or again, we can bring this back to the January 31st special meeting for additional discussion. So multiple options on the table.
Your Honor, before you begin, Jessica, so the worksheet that is by department, what was it? I just lost it, 19%, whatever?
Yes, that the $92,000 is 19%.
Okay, so that's still accurate then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Off of the $494,000 number.
I understand.
So, yep.
Understand.
So let's go to the two things that are really impacting sort of programming and services. So we have $92,000 in department reductions. The list is quite extensive. This was every department coming forward with those cuts and putting that proposed. Councilmember Thompson, we looked at how we could take your suggestion of not selling a vehicle, because vehicles are a hot commodity right now, but how could we utilize the 2 city vehicles that we expect to have available with no assigned employee to them by the end of the fiscal year? And the easy answer was that we will not reimburse employees mileage, exception being law enforcement academy, new police department members driving down there. That's a different sort of scenario. But that we will basically just have employees log what they're driving and allocate those costs out if there's really even a reason to do that. We just don't know what this will look like. But basically that mileage reimbursement would only be allowed when a city vehicle is not available. As you can see from that larger spreadsheet, the conferences and trainings are what we really took a whack at kind of across the board as well, focusing pretty much on in-state or necessary trainings. Maintain status quo programming, nothing too crazy with that. Not looking at adding much, reducing out some of the things that we've had in the past. The second part is eliminating our contract with Roger Shell for city.
Can we stop and talk about department reductions before we go into the
Oh,
other
yeah.
section?
Would you like me to bring up that spreadsheet?
You don't have to. I just, as we go through that, and I get trying to balance the budget, I also, as I go through each line item, struggle with pinch and pennies across the board when, especially some of the items, and sorry, Chief Tupper, I'm going to pick on you, but vehicle repair may take longer for vehicles to be repaired. If I think about police department and otherwise, and some of the expenses that are being cut, I think some of them are a little bit ridiculous, for lack of a better term. And where we're trying to pinch pennies, I'd rather not pinch pennies across the board. And then I guess my second comment would be, if some of these things aren't really a necessity from a department program, is how we evaluate what that looks like moving forward on an annual basis of what's really required versus what's a nice have, right? So are these, I mean, is this a cut that is going to be, discussion is going to happen next year? Does it make sense to even talk about them next year as part of the budget cycle? I don't want to get into the same routine like we have the last 2 years and have to go through this exercise year over year over year. It just doesn't make sense that we're $100 here, $200 there. So I just want to ad-lib that comment. I don't know what, I know I wasn't here for the discussion last week, but I get saving some money and some of the stuff makes sense, but there's a number of items that I guess I just don't agree with.
Other comments or questions on that topic?
Your Honor.
Yes.
For example, I mean, I guess where I would tag on to that is, are these realistic? You know, I mean, everything here, I mean, the department heads put these together. And, you know, the one that stuck out to me that I have a problem with is reduction in the number of miles we put into patrol work. Does that mean we're going to patrol less or we're going to be more efficient? I mean, some of this stuff, I mean, I hear what Councilman Isom's saying is like, you know, make less copies, do this, you know, and the repair vehicle, don't we repair our own vehicles?
Most of the time, and then that cost gets allocated back into each department based on the work done.
So was this just thrown together to appease us, or was there really, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay the work that went into this, but I just like, are we at that point to where, you know, I don't know how to say this. I mean, are we at a point to where, you know, $100 here, I mean, I applaud the effort, but is this, I mean, it adds up to $92,000, but
Yeah, so I would say we're at the point where we would rather give up a number of our line items than any employee reduction. And so that is where we're at. We're minimally staffed in just about every department. I think every department, it's fair to say that we're minimally staffed, and there's plenty of areas where we certainly could grow personnel. But that's where we as a collective team would rather offer up $92,000 in savings than see any one department lose a person.
And I wouldn't go on record. I don't think, well, at least I'll speak by myself, but I by no means am saying that's the alternate option, so.
I guess from when you ask us to cut, or if you're asking to see cuts from departments, this is kind of where we're at versus personnel.
Your Honor?
Yes.
So you're saying these cuts will not, will this affect the quality of service that your staff has with the public?
I would say that's going to vary on a department by department basis. The one thing that I will say that I believe Councilmember Isom was hitting on is a lot of these are purely one-time in nature. That I do believe that there would be, you can't continually go back and cut $92,000 each year, and that at some point there's going to be a need to add these. Do we need to go to national conferences? That can be an edict from the council of, we keep it as you have it here, keep the vehicles as you have it. I think there are some good things that we thought about with this, and like using our 2 vehicles. I believe there's probably about $5,000 or so worth of mileage that we were able to reduce out because of that, and we certainly won't see that much cost related to what we're proposing. So I think, is all of this something that that makes sense? No, it's not. But this is what department heads came forward and were willing to offer for the council to consider. Would you like me to move forward with the presentation? Okay.
Yeah.
So the other aspect of this is reducing our legal services. That budget in the general fund is function 6040 if you are looking at that report. And so this would be eliminating our contract with Roger Shell for city attorney services and have all legal work flow through Lynch Dallas. The quick question is probably, how do you see those savings? They have individuals at different lower levels and pay rates that they distribute the work amongst, so that's where you see some savings there, and that's how I'm getting to that number of what I'd see. One thing that I think is a question that if you would want to move forward with this that you would have to ask yourselves is, do you need someone in person at a city council meeting? If you don't, then there's probably additional savings beyond $20,000 there. Any questions before I move forward on that one?
I'd be remiss if I didn't say something about the fact that we certainly have enjoyed getting good legal counsel from Roger Shell and his law firm over these years. So I do need to add that. Roger and I are also getting at the age where, we keep talking about retirement, but we never seem to get it done. And so I need to throw that in as well. But I'm looking at a birthday at, age 69 in about 4 weeks, and so we're having that discussion.
Well, there goes the surprise party.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, sorry about that. Nah, surprise parties, if I can improve my driving and make it to 70, we're gonna have one then. Go ahead and continue, though. Sorry, I had to throw that in. It just felt funny not to say something.
Okay, and just to go back and clarify, we're talking about what are all of our options here. We're kind of at a point where the deficit isn't correcting itself. What can we do differently? Hotel motel tax changes fits into that heading as well. What can we do differently? We are required under Iowa code to use 50% of hotel motel tax for improving recreational, cultural, or entertainment facilities or for the promotion of tourist and convention business. We currently have a contract with the Chamber of Commerce that expires on June 30th, giving 67% of our hotel motel tax dollars. The difference between the difference is $81,600 between 67% versus 50% at that budget amount of $480,000. This one is a new one. It's
Hey,
out
Jessica.
there. Oh,
Can we just stop after everyone, have a conversation?
You're not in my line of sight,
No,
so
you're
I
good. I just,
apologize.
personally, I'd rather have a conversation around everyone rather than get to the end and then try to have a completely elaborated conversation amongst the entire thing. Personal feeling is that I don't think that dropping it down to 50,000 makes sense to me. I think the work that the chamber does is both warranted, needed, and otherwise appreciated. At least in my discussion, I think that some of the solutions in place would be that we could modify it to lower it, but keeping their budget from an annual perspective flat, even though one would argue with expenses and inflation otherwise it's net negative. So that's where my head's at and where I would tend to at least do from a first step perspective as we evaluate if stair stepping that down makes sense long term or not.
And
Your
anyone
Honor,
else?
I agree with
Yeah.
Councilman Isom. I think they need more than 50%.
Your Honor, an additional comment would be that question I have is the amount of tax dollars that the council takes those funds and generates out of the use of that money also plays into my own considerations.
Your Honor.
Yes.
One additional comment. And I guess as we think about reducing funds to the chamber from what's in there versus what's not, we're inherently, by doing that, taking away grants or otherwise funding to other areas of the or the community by doing that. So I just think we have to be cognizant of when we take money away, where that money is truly being taken from the community and the residents within.
Your Honor, outside of this agreement, how much money does the city fund to the chamber?
We have an agreement, an annual agreement for economic development services at $50,000 a year, which is funded through our Southside TIF area. And then we do pay the annual membership fee of somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, $400 to $500.
Thank you.
Okay. Other council comment about this? Okay, to proceed to the next
Okay.
item.
Urban tree fee, this one is a new one, but it was one that, just given the importance of trees in our community and how much work there still is to do, we thought it was worth bringing forward at this time, as it would be something as simple as the council adopting an ordinance and setting a fee by ordinance or resolution. And so the impact on the general fund is not big, $27,500, but essentially this would be billing all billed counts through Marshalltown Waterworks $1 a month or $12 a year to basically pay for public tree maintenance. So public trees would be those in the parks and those in the terrace area. Currently, our ordinance requires that the property owner is responsible for trimming trees in the terrace area. We would propose that that would actually become a city function if the public was paying for that, and we would handle all tree trimming, all removals, all stump removals, as well as then an amount put towards replanting each year as well. I think that we've, in our initial budget we've got that $10,000 of the $125,000. This would be helpful in removing or reducing the costs for stump removal out of road use tax. Currently, if a tree is in the terrace area, road use tax is covering it. I will tell you $125,000 a year probably wouldn't get all the stumps that are out there right now removed, but it at least gives us another source to start handling some of the other tree maintenance issues that we have, and helping to cover some costs of our staff who are truly dedicated to our trees in the right-of-way and in the parks. And so that's that $25,000 for the park supervisor and horticulturalist is 20% of their wages and benefits, or their wages only, because benefits are paid with a separate tax levy. And so this is something that we wanted to throw out there. The city of Marion has done this for a number of years, and I think their bill is maybe up to like the $2.25 per month range. They experienced some pretty big damage from the derecho as well. It's worked really well there in sort of providing that separate funding source that says that trees and tree maintenance are of importance here, that we don't want to reduce those or cut that out with any other reductions. So that's why we wanted to bring that forward to you, to just at least get it out there for some discussion and see if it was something that you would want to move forward with, as it's a little bit different than some other revenue sources.
Any discussion on that topic? I guess I would throw in that if you were ever looking to, nobody likes paying taxes, but if you were ever looking for the average Marshalltown resident to want to contribute to something, $1 or $2 a month to try to repopulate and keep up our trees just might be more popular than any other tax we get, I would think, but that's just me.
Your Honor, I couldn't agree more.
That's why we felt that it was something that there is a lot that we can do with a little per each, residence, basically, that would be getting a utility bill. So definitely wanted to throw that out there.
Your Honor, just one more.
Yes.
Given your point, Your Honor, and support from Councilman Schneider, is there any possibility we could talk about a proposal a little bit higher than $1 a month, given the amount of work that we still have around our community for this type of cleanup? Is there any interest in that as a discussion?
We can bring this back as a separate discussion item too. Ultimately, we're talking about a July 1st, kind of budget start timeframe. So this is something that can be heavily discussed before needing to be implemented by an ordinance. But if it's something that's favorable, we'd certainly like to keep it in there as a budget strategy.
Your Honor?
Yeah. Yes.
I actually love this idea, and I'd like what Councilman Walker said, that I'd like to see this incorporate a higher fee and making the compost pile free at the same time. We take over, doing this. My other question on this would be, would we still outsource the stump removals and stuff? Are we buying equipment? I mean, Jeff's shaking his head. No.
It would be looking to do outsourcing for some things. Parks does have an attachment to take on some of the smaller stumps in the parks, and they've been doing that. But probably in what we're looking at in the right-of-way, with cars, with the utility locates, with everything else that needs to be done, we'd be looking to contract that out. Same with the tree trimming as well. Because that would require a bucket truck, we probably would be looking to contract that out as well.
I would love to have further discussion on this item.
Okay, we can definitely bring this back and give you kind of more of the detail of where we were and talk about what dollar amounts kind of equal what. And one of the things that I kept thinking was that, it'd be nice to, it's nice when you get a free tree to plant, but when it's this big, it just takes forever. It'd be nice to get some more mature trees purchased and planted around the community that we don't necessarily have to wait the first 15 years for or 10 years for.
When you bring that back to us, it'd be fun to know how much the class of 1969 has actually raised to date too. I mean, they've just done a phenomenal job in terms of buying the trees that we'll be replacing over the next 10 years in the different varieties. But that should perk a little interest in the public out there too, to do their do our fair share.
Trees have become a collective thing, and we felt that this was a collective proposal to ensure that our community is a tree community. And then our final kind of way to fill the gaps here, we have using council designated local option sales tax and ARPA revenue replacement at two different kind of dollar amounts. So to start with the local option sales tax, just given that each year we do kind of have these, we're always starting at a deficit, it seems, I'd like to propose that the council consider a policy that would basically allocate 25% in each budget season to the general fund, knowing that we always have more conversations about the general fund and nothing is final until things are approved. I do have a draft of that I can share as well if that's more of interest to speak about. And then ARPA, it's our one-time money. We still have $730,000 that's not allocated. I did want to point out that our general fund backfill loss was nearly $22,000 for the budget that we're working on right now. I think ARPA can certainly be used to fill in where needed at whatever level you would want to use it at as well. So that's kind of where we're at in total. Just looking ahead, just some, oh, go ahead.
Your Honor, can you go back to that?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I understand this. So the first line there, you want us to allocate 25% of our 22% every year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Looking ahead, we don't need answers tonight, so this is a lot more detail than we gave you at the last meeting, and so you don't have to make any decisions tonight, but February 14th would be that meeting where we would like there to be some proposal that there is a majority that is in favor of. Department reductions truly are mostly one-time in nature. As I just mentioned, we could make a policy that allows staff to incorporate 25% of the 22% into each budget cycle to help, this conversation along on deficits. The current fiscal year, as you went through that general fund comparison report, you'll still see that it is about $400,000. We are going back and still making some changes to that, so I don't want you to be alarmed for that, but we still might be talking about, do we need to use ARPA or some other source of revenue to fill any gap that would be there above and beyond the deficit that we knew we had if we can't get it down. And then finally, I didn't want to not share this information, but I don't recommend that we incorporate it in this year's budget because this is a much longer conversation to have with all of you and what this could do. But we currently are not assessing any sort of gas and electric franchise fee. Which can be up to 5% on gas and electric utilities. I did ask Alliant for an update, and they said 1% is approximately $500,000, give and take. There are a number of uses which this could go for. I think that it's just something that requires more of a conversation than we should have here now. But I did want you to think about that as we look ahead here, that we've got ways to solve this fiscal year's deficit. Do we want to look at doing something that could be a little bit more permanent and some funding for future fiscal years? And so that's where I'll pull up kind of the little worksheet that I had and just kind of show you where we were at. I'm happy to put in some numbers on any of this if you'd like to put in some numbers. Otherwise, we can bring this back to the January 31st special meeting for additional discussion, questions, presentation, whatever you would like.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Before we get into this, I got two questions for Jessica, if I may.
You may.
I just realized on the water bills is our avenue for billing the public. Can the water department tell us how many people in Marshalltown that are in the city limits don't use city water? I mean, are we missing some people? Are they getting a freebie?
So what
it can't be many.
Well, what we'd still have is everybody pays a stormwater fee. I should say everybody gets billed a stormwater fee.
Okay, so every address gets a water bill even if they're not using water.
Yeah. So
because they got that landfill fee and everything else.
Correct.
Okay.
So the estimated number of addresses they gave us was 10,287. Okay. I don't have clarification on whether that's commercial and industrial or if that's just residential, because it seems like it's probably just residential. So that number could actually go up a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the post office shows 13,000 residential addresses.
If you might have some landlords that are paying the utility.
I understand.
Yeah, so.
And then my other question was, these fixes like this 92,000, like Councilman Eisen brought up. I mean, we can't keep nickel and diming. We're going to make less copies.
Yeah.
We can't do this stuff. So when you met with all your department heads, what is the timeline for us? How many years out are we from layoffs?
Well, I would say it probably depends on how often you want to use local option sales tax to fill gaps if there's not an alternate revenue source like a franchise fee. So, I mean, it's really up to you guys as to when that time comes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anybody, do you want to go, suggest we go line by line with suggestions, or have you kind of gotten the gist of what people have thought so far?
Yeah, I mean, we can always bring this back to the next meeting. I'm gonna guess you probably want to ruminate on this just a little bit. It's new information. I don't know if there's anything that anybody, like, I feel like you were all very strongly urban tree fee, so we can certainly put that one there if you would like to do that. If there's,
I think you could put a higher figure in there for now, and I got the impression, I don't know, we didn't really ask for a show of hands, but in terms of the Chamber of Commerce hotel motel tax, I think you might want to come back with a different figure there too. Maybe I misread.
Well, I mean, could we hear from John Hall to see what he has to say?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was appropriate or not, so, sorry. Good evening, Mayor and Council, John Hall, Marshalltown Area Chamber of Commerce. I appreciate the opportunity to address this, and certainly I understand where the council's at in trying to find ways to reduce the budget, knowing that you're running up against a budget deficit. So what I'll say is that, you know, the hotel motel tax is coming back. And so what we're seeing is that in terms of real dollars, we're going to collect more in hotel motel tax next year than we did the previous year. And in part, that is a return from the pandemic, but in addition, that is our office continuing to work to facilitate and bring back events and activities that took that year off. And in a lot of cases, there was maybe still apprehension about returning it. And so we worked hard to re-grab those folks, same as we're working again this year to grab more conferences, to grab more opportunities. You know, we've got 2 new conferences coming where we're trying to plug holes where we've got weeks of dips in hotel motel stays. So we collect, we get a report every week called the STAR Report. It is the hotel motel stays within our community. It shows us average room rate, average occupancy, and it shows that per actual hotel facility. And so we can see that year over year we're continuing to track up. We manage and aim for weeks where there is very low stays, which during the winter is always the case, but hard to fill, especially this time of year. Conferences don't even want to convene this time unless it's further south, much further south. But we try and work to plug those holes as we try and build up as much occupancy as we can. At the same time, we know that we've got one product offline right now, and that is set to return online here in the first quarter of this year. And so we know that through a couple of those efforts, we're going to continue to see our hotel motel tax climb. And so while I understand the City Council's desire to get us down to that 50% in funding, which unlocks then the other 50% total for the council, what I'd ask is that you look at a level at 56%, which would maintain our real dollars going into our budget. So it's a difference of $28,000. And what it does is it keeps our budget whole so that we don't have to trim within our grants and our really our local advertising spend. And if you look at that ARPA revenue replacement dollar amount, that's where I think we're seeing, you know, that dollar was meant to go in and fill gaps in budgets where there were budget reductions due to COVID-19. Well, this is exactly what that is. You know, the hotel motel tax took a dip because of the pandemic. It's climbing back. I fully expect that next year we could have this same conversation and our budget would be held whole at 50%. So I think this can be a goal to work towards if that's the council's desire. But what I'd ask for tonight or for consideration again on February 14th is looking at that 56% in order to maintain us at kind of an equal true dollar in amount.
Thanks, John. Any questions or comments for John?
Your Honor, if I may?
You may.
You understand, John, that we don't want to lay off our people, but we got no problem you laying off your people, right?
I mean, if you'd like me to have Andrew here and you can tell him that's your desire. Okay.
But so you did the same thing our staff did. You put I appreciate that. You put a pencil to the paper. So you're saying 56% keeps you whole.
Yes.
At this number we're projecting?
Yes, yep.
Okay. And
We continue to see that. So because hotel motel tax is a lagging indicator, we continue to track week by week that our hotel motel tax or our hotel motel stays year over year are growing somewhere in the 7 to 10% range week by week, which stands to reason that then we would see additional hotel motel tax available then the following year. Also with the addition of another property online. So like, for instance, we had during the state swim meet, we had 88% hotel occupancy. We contend that we were actually probably at 100% occupancy. We had an issue with one of our hotels that our team had to respond to where they ran into a water issue in the hotel, which resulted in having to actually move most of those out of town in order to stay. And so we know that with that additional property, there's more hotel motel tax to be collected. So.
hey, I understand, just like we don't want to cut our staff or our departments too thin. Are you guys moving out of the basement of the church this year?
It's
And
our
is your-
intention,
Is your
yes.
cost going to go up because of that then?
Yes.
And you've got that factored in?
Yes, so we're gonna, we're restructuring our economic development funding, working to secure more investment from the private sector in order to match into the public dollars that we already collect, and that will be what we use to fund additional or better office space. I mean, it's not that we're not appreciative of the church, it's space.
Well,
That's about,
I'm sure they want their basement back.
well, and it's not very warm in the winter or cool in the summer, so it's tough working conditions, but our team's making it.
Well, I appreciate what you came to us with, that you understand. So.
Yes, absolutely, and want to work with you all, and yeah, I think that's the ARPA revenue replacement makes the perfect sense. I mean, that was funds one time designed to plug holes. This is what I would call a hole related to the pandemic.
Right.
So,
Thanks, John. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I do think that it might be valuable, given that February 14th will be here before we know it, if we do, as council members, share just a little bit about where we think we're at with these reduction possibilities. I'll step forward first in saying that I really think that Gabe brought some good points about the department cuts. Generally, when leaders tell me where they can find money, I believe them. However, year on end, this is going to be pretty difficult, especially things like fuel use. So I don't know that 92,000 is going to be able to be captured. If we could, as a number goes, see that around 80,000, I think that would be a job well done. I agree that a step down is probably most appropriate for the hotel. I think we can do more for our urban tree fee. You shared that you thought Marion, that community who's in a similar circumstance, is getting a lot of bang for their buck at was it $2.50? I don't think we can go that high, but we can go much higher than $1 in my opinion. And then through the rest of the list, I'm nodding along as well. Thanks.
Just to be clear, I think that we would probably not be looking to allocate more than 20% of the staff time, but there would be private contracts that are not currently budgeted in the general fund, which you could certainly have more money to pay for. So I'd probably want to talk more with Jeff and with Kristen Titus, our park supervisor, about what that would look like if it is more of their time dedicated to the tree function. But we will have further discussion on that one.
I'm kind of in the same ballpark as Dex. I think we could, can we wrap this up tonight so we don't have to do this on the 31st? I think we're really close here. And I think John made a good suggestion that this is the intent of ARPA, and perhaps we could, backfill that extra 6% that he's asking for from the ARPA funds.
Yes, so I did some quick math, and the difference between 50% at $240,000 and 56% at $268,800 is $52,800, or a difference of $28,800. So if you feel that 56% is a worthwhile proposal, that would be what that number would look like in terms of monies that we didn't currently have sort of coming to the city's general fund in that scenario.
Other input?
Your Honor, I'll go, I guess, next. I'm aligned with what's been said. Next, your off-the-cuff answer on the department cuts lined up pretty well with what I put in the ridiculous bucket, so I don't think I would go above 80,000 on departmental cuts. One can go lower possibly, but I think 80 max. Just personally speaking, even though it's not on the spreadsheet, I don't know that I agree with the policy of 25%. I'd rather have that discussion every year rather than set something in stone, knowing where we get with policies that are 20 years old. And I would agree with Jeff with regards to the ARPA funds with some of the additional amounts going into that rather than the 42.5 noted.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Jessica, where'd you come up with that much for ARPA? Was that just to balance it out? Because
Yep.
I thought previous conversations, you had all that ARPA money earmarked for different projects.
There's 723,000 that has not had a more of a formal council action tied with it.
So
And
so you can go up to 700,000 to balance this out?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I guess it's my turn. I think we can do the 56%. I do struggle a little bit with setting a policy of using 25% on the local option sales tax, because I think it needs to be discussed every year and not just as a line item. Well, okay, we're using 25% already. I think that needs to be discussed every year. I don't think I go above 80,000 on department cuts. I can't see it. You're down there talking $100 here, $100 there, a few bullets, that type of stuff, some training, that bothers me quite a bit, not getting some of our emergency staff training. So that's pretty much where I'm at. And I do like Gary's idea of tying the tree thing in with the compost center. Get some numbers worked up with that. I think there might be some possibilities with that.
I think Barry was raising his hand.
Barry.
Yes. So my input would be, I think first, we're staring at that 494K amount. I think we're at 468 now. Is that correct, Jessica, from earlier comment? There were some additional savings found.
Yes, that's with the building, what we think we can remove for the building and official changes. We're at $468,237.
Yep. So essentially that savings would be a net neutral with the hotel motel tax discussion that we've had. Specific to the department cuts, echo what everyone said. Really appreciate everyone circling the wagons and looking at their budgets to see what can be done. We all succeed together, but yeah, it's when you get to that line level approach where you start to wonder, are we diminishing our services to meet, just solely meet a dollar amount? So where we land specific, and there's been a couple dollar figures thrown out. We appreciate the effort, but we need to maintain the service and the value that our citizens are expecting and truly need.
Thank you.
So do we need a motion to wrap this up for tonight, this exact topic?
Let me fill in some gaps here. So, $80,000 was the amount that I would say most of you said that we can certainly shoot for. If we could come up with 92, I'm pretty sure we can get it down to 80 and come back with what that looks like. Legal reduction is the one that we haven't talked about. What is your direction on that one?
I'll go first. I think based off the situation with where we're at and otherwise, I think it makes sense. You talk about, opposite of department cuts. That's something that isn't a 1 year stab and grab. And so I think that's one, along with the urban tree fee and otherwise, that makes an impact outside of just this fiscal year. And those are the kind of items that I think we need to be talking about more in depth on how we achieve more than just those two from an example. So I would be in favor of that based off of that sole reason alone.
Your Honor?
Yes.
If we go from 3 to 2 law firms, is there any way we can get to 1 law firm? There's got to be savings in that, right?
So, well, there's 4 because we use Ehlers and Cooney for personnel, Dorsey and Whitney for bonding and for urban renewal type of issues, and then Lynch Dallas would be who the main everyday stuff would go through. So I don't think we'll ever get down to 1, just because of specialization.
As a past president of the State Bar Association, I can tell you, the firms that we have doing that work are the firms that are known for that, for being the best. It would be foolish to switch. I mean, if we switch from the Ehlers firm from what they're doing, there might be an immediate cost savings, but we would lose out in the long run.
So your staff is willing to do the legwork in town then to pick up? I'm assuming this is the end of the fiscal year, this legal reduction, or is that, what's the timing of that?
Well, I think that's probably a discussion of how quickly you would
Okay.
want to make a change
So
for dollars.
I've got to believe that besides doing legal reference stuff, Roger's doing some legwork for us too. So your staff is in a position to take over all that.
Yeah, I was going to say Roger typically does go to the county auditor's office and to the recorder's office when there's questions on things, making those phone calls and things like that. That's something that we would probably seek to do in-house to run those errands and things when needed. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Your Honor.
I personally will miss Roger if this happens, and would also feel a little bereft if really tough legal issues were raised in terms of the procedure here. But I'm assuming that if we went with the Dallas firm, they could be available by telephone, have somebody on call, so if an issue arose, we could call them and get a legal opinion or procedural opinion on the spot.
Yeah, I feel like it would be a future discussion as to what that level of legal services look like in terms of attending council meetings and being in person or available in another sort of way. So I would say that's not built in here, that would be something that if you do want to move forward with that, we would talk further about what that would look like.
Your Honor?
Yes.
So the things left is, for this year, are we, rather than doing the lost number of 231, is ARPA, are we all saying that ARPA is gonna take on the whole deficit then, and we protect the lost money for now? I mean, we didn't really touch on that. Are we still doing the 231 this year? Because you said you had 700,000 in ARPA unaccounted for, that's the wrong word, unearmarked.
Yep.
So can we, again, from comments earlier, we kind of like having our little slush fund, and we don't know what's going to happen. It's only January. So can we, we had that 20,000 in there on the legal reduction, and your numbers are okay on the other stuff, in my opinion. Can we just get rid of the lost number and make ARPA be the difference to get to that 494, 737?
Yeah, so I just did some very, very quick rough math, not exact here, but basically if you wanted to leave that at 0, then this number becomes $288,000 that would be needed there.
And understanding that tree number is probably going to go up, so it's going to protect a little bit of that ARPA money.
Yeah, it potentially could, so, yep.
So, I mean, that's the direction I would like to see this go. I don't know.
Your Honor, going back to the legal fees, can we ask Roger what maybe value he provides that we're not taking into consideration? I think he probably deserves a chance to say something if he'd like to retain our business.
Well, I do think Dallas comes over here to court, but I do know they come over here to court quite a bit. I'm not sure how they bill, or if they bill their mileage. My guess is they do, but I've not ever seen it. I just think that it would be a mistake to lose a local connection to the legal actions of the city. But I understand totally the budget situation. I'm not sure what the savings would be. I believe that I work at the same hourly rate that the Lynch Dallas firm does. But we'll find out.
I guess my personal opinion would be I would prefer to retain them. It feels like insurance that you don't realize what you have until you need it sometimes. And I'd be afraid that with his experience and being local, it may be a $20,000 benefit to us.
Anyone else? It feels a little bit awkward since, Roger's here and we're having that discussion about him and local lawyers. And as a local lawyer, I'm awkward anyway. But if anybody else would like to weigh in on that now, do so.
So I guess I don't change my opinion. I guess I'll offer an alternate, at least middle ground for discussion then. Does that 20,000 then get moved into, and I don't know if really moving the funds makes a difference. Do we have a discussion when we have some additional information of what that looks like from fees or otherwise that gives people more warranted information to make a more viable decision? I mean, I still stand by longer-term impact to the budget. I get where you're coming from, Jeff, but maybe an alternate's to review that at the beginning of the new fiscal year and take the next 6 months to put together a conversation or discussion sometime over that time frame for us to decide future at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Your Honor. And I love Roger. I mean, he's the only guy that laughs at my stupid jokes when I used to sit over there. But the thing is, we have you clarify, we have 4 law firms, and I like what Councilman Isom said, we don't know what the alternative is. The Lynch Dallas has staff that can do a lot of stuff for us that won't be billed at a lawyer's rate. They'll be billed at clerk's rate, I gotta believe. Some of the stuff is, pretty routine. I think we got to make some cuts. We got to figure out how to do this. And like Councilman Isom said, we can always go back. Like I said earlier to John Hall, it's easier for us to cut other people's employees and not our own. So that's the harsh reality of it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor. One additional comment.
We're looking at structural problems with the city budget, and we have to make structural changes. And this is a structural change. I don't like it either, but we're going to have to start thinking along these lines in the future. I don't think the state's going to be our friend anytime soon in how they're doing things. And as long as they can cut taxes and then lay it off on us, we're going to be looking at making structural changes and more in the future. So I'm in favor of what Gabe and Gary said. I think it's time to start making some structural changes, and this would probably be a pretty good start.
Gabe, you asking to speak again too?
Yeah, I new comment from what I was originally going to say, but I guess my only other question as we look at the table here is we have the ARPA instead of any local option sales tax. Do we want to evaluate any different number from departmental cuts in 80,000 and absorb any of that from an ARPA or local option sales tax from the council designated rather than just the 12,000? I guess that's my only other question.
We can bring back a list of what 80,000 looks like and getting to that number so you can better understand. It might remove some of the things that we're bringing pause or question or earlier. So I think this is a good starting point, that we can certainly have this on the January 31st special meeting for further discussion. It sounds like there's kind of consensus around ARPA being the gap filler, as it's one-time funds versus local option sales tax, so we can definitely work with that and the other things that have been noted here.
And Your Honor, hey, this is an ongoing problem for us. We don't generate enough taxes to pay for the level of services we offer. So rather than wait till budget year next year, can we have some discussions throughout the year of how we're gonna figure out how to make our organization more efficient?
I don't know if making ourselves more efficient is something that is possible at this point. If efficiency, I think I feel like I'd be misrepresenting my department head team, many who have been here have gone through this year after year after year after year for 10 plus years, saying that we haven't, we've figured out efficiencies. And so I think we're there at this point. I think that truly, if we're going to change the size of our organization and our organizational budget, the next step is truly personnel, if you're not putting in another resource there.
And we gotta figure I don't know what the answer is. I mean, we're not involved with the day-to-day operation. Only you and your department heads and the frontline workers know, but we've got to figure something out. I mean, we're a household that's spending more than we're taking in. So I just like to have some more often discussions, so, we're not always trying to figure out a Band-Aid in January. So that's all I'm asking.
We can do, I think with new council members, it's probably good to do like a quarterly budget review just throughout the year to make sure where we are, especially since we're probably going to still have a deficit with the current fiscal year. So keep making sure that you know about that, understand where that's coming from. We can definitely still have those conversations.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Your Honor.
So we'll wrap this one up, have it coming back on the next agenda as just sort of making sure that everybody's still at where they are at tonight and there hasn't been any change.
Okay. 2 items up before we get to public comment and closed sessions. So let's go to the next one, capital improvement plans.
Yeah, I'll couch these with the same expectation that not expecting the world to move tonight. These are still in draft form and can still be in draft form until you're ready to move them there. I did provide a memo that sort of gave you all the updates of where I had made changes. Probably the biggest thing that I want to focus on in sort of all of these funds and things that changed was really the accounting in the capital funds, which led us to that at this point we do have one fund, Fund 360. This is where the Anson Park shelter was borrowed out of, that we have about $400,000 that really is not allocated towards any project, but one of the purposes of the bond, and clearly was the Anson Park shelter was couched as municipal park improvements, and so we have $400,000 to allocate towards that, which I would encourage you to think about. My recommendation is to cut the cost for Farmers Market and Park 101 down to $200,000 each and remove those off of this list. The second piece to this conversation is, as this stands now with updates, and I can make this bigger if you would like me to. We need to get this bottom line number to 10 million. And for those of you who were here earlier or later in 2021, I did make sure my Excel formulas are working and they are correct. So I am confident that number is summing completely. But we need to, there's really multiple options that we kind of hit on tonight too. So we need to get this number to $10 million. But if there's numbers, projects that make up that number that you want to see, we have the ability with, there's a pretty decent sized balance in local option sales tax council designated to put towards some of these projects, as well as, looking at probably a good $750,000 to $1 million in the property tax relief that could be used for one of these projects, if not used in how we would structure our debt. So that's a lot to think about. I'm prepared to do anything that you would like to do tonight in terms of discussion, but I also know that it is getting on in time, and we do have a special meeting next week, so we can do whatever your pleasure be tonight.
I think we just, let's wait till next week. We've done an awful lot of work, and this could get into an awful lot more.
I'll chime in. So we already talked about canceling farmers market improvements in Park 101 based off your recommendations, which takes it down 500,000. I know one of the discussions was a street improvement, and earlier this evening, while not unanimous consensus, we talked about if you take the street improvement down to 4, but then you use the lost of some amount thereof to make from it and whatever else remaining to make up that additional $1 million out of local option sales tax council designated, you have that $1 million still allocated in there, therefore you're still whole.
I would, Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
One of the obvious numbers to look at is okay, you took street improvements down to the 4.1?
Yep.
Okay. I would like to be able to move the splash pad up 1 year. I believe that there's other funding options that are available right now that in 1 year might not be there. Also, I think with the Megaton site, I think we've got a pretty good winner there. I would just as soon not miss out on funds that we can capture because we waited a year.
What funds are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Grants and fundraising opportunities that are available right now. There's quite a few out there that we may not need to spend hardly anything for it if we get going with it, but if we come up short, we would still have the funding ability to be able to do it.
Do you want me to reduce the street improvement number to get that down to 10 million?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I just want to know, are these numbers, these are realistic numbers? Because a couple of them seem a little low to me.
Yeah, they're realistic numbers. I mean, just to review, Kiwanis Park is one that Jeff has put together. That's basically $200,000 in park improvements, $35,000 for outside design and construction oversight. Splash pad, $500,000. You can. Whatever that number is, it is what it is. So if it's 500,000 is the number that's here, then you price out, you figure out what your fundraising and grant opportunities are to figure out what is a $500,000 splash pad.
The sidewalk gap projects, we're still chasing the schools?
We're still chasing the school, Hoagland and, Hoagland.
Anson,
Yeah.
right? So how many, so we will be done chasing the schools in 3 years?
This is just Hoagland, Anson, and Fisher are in this current fiscal year, so
Yeah,
those
but-
are already funded. I think that one of these, I'd have to look at the sheet. I think the FY '25 is Bohan and Palmer Streets, making that I think dual sidewalks because of the connection to Center Street. And then also, I think this one is various Third Ward projects, like there's some gaps on South Ridge and a few other places where you just have sidewalks that just don't connect to anywhere, so.
I thought we finished Fisher School.
So Fisher is in this current year project.
Okay.
This is not Fisher School, this is just other what I just generally describe as Third Ward areas.
I thought we were just doing the schools. So these aren't considered walkways to the school?
No, they wouldn't. A good example is by Pizza Ranch. There is no sidewalk connecting from the existing sidewalk up to where you have new sidewalk that's been built. So more things like that where you might have had a house that didn't put in sidewalk because they weren't required to, but one is built that has.
And you're comfortable with your parking lot numbers?
Heather did those numbers, so
Okay.
I'm comfortable
So
with
can we
that.
slow down the sidewalk gap, or do we need to go the whole 900,000 this year?
That's completely up to you. I think that if you tell us what that budget is, then Heather and her team will figure out what that gets us.
That looks like an awfully large amount to begin with. I would just go $500,000 each year as we're going down through.
So basically, we would take out one school then. We do one school, not the other one.
It's just this, that 900,000 is just Hoagland. There's a number of gaps in the.
I thought it was Hoagland and Anson.
No, Anson is this current year. Anson and Fisher are this year.
Oh, okay.
You know, those have already been bid. That work will be starting this year.
Okay,
This was just Hoagland.
Okay. Your Honor?
Mhm.
And then the 925,000, it's really that much? Because the trail's already on the two private.
It's on one private property, and that's the Crosby Park Apartments.
Right. So we're going to fund the trail on private property for Wayward Social.
Wayward Social, and then cutting through the Creekside Estates to
Oh,
make,
that's
and the Legion, what would be kind of their right of way,
So,
probably into.
so we're going to spend almost $1 million of taxpayers' money to put a bike trail to connect two businesses that are going to benefit from the bike trail.
600,000 of that dollar amount is the bridge. 25,000 is demolition of the current bridge. We can certainly go back and look at what are the options of refinishing.
I
what
would
we
say
have.
that the option is a bike lane on the current new bridge.
Yeah, and that exists, I mean, yeah.
That's not a safe passage at all on 6th Street. And plus, it's a public utility, the recreational trail. It's not like they own it.
Yeah, so when constructed on private property, there's parts that we have of the Lynn Creek Trail System that are on Union Pacific property, and it's just simply done, they do an easement for that. So it's possible to have city-owned and maintained trail on private property.
Do you think that money could be saved on the bridge?
I think so. I think there is an aesthetic element to what you're talking about. So the last bridge report from 2019 has it basically needing a new deck, and new handrails, and I think a new, something from the bottom side that was going to be new, because there's rebar showing. There's basically no surfacing left there.
Okay.
So I think that the estimate that we were working off of at that point was 200,000. I think what we would want to do is hire the individuals who did the bridge inspection, Calhoun and Burns, to truly put together a scope of work with a cost estimate to see if that's truly what would be the best option, and what would be sort of the life expectancy that we would get out of that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to have any input?
My only ask is, and I think we've made progress, so obviously if we need another discussion, so be it. My only ask is that we talk about the street improvement funding to make sure it doesn't go down, that we're still funding more than what's on this table from other funds. And I think that'd be a discussion for a later date outside of this table in front of us today.
So if I can just make the suggestion, change that 1 to a 0, we're at 10 million. There's still $4 million going towards streets. The other items are as, you know, there were suggestions to adjust them. I can email this out to all of you as a version, and we can kind of go through what each of those things means, and then bring that back to February 14th is when we'd like to have this one resolved as well. So we can bring that back either to January 31st special meeting or February 14th for review. But I understand what you're saying, Councilmember Isom, that there's more discussion about how to increase that street number.
Okay, let's do that. Do we want to tackle the debt capacity workbook?
That is just what we did, so we're actually done with,
Public comment? Okay. Let me read this proviso as fast as I can. Members of the public may make comments on the item that was not on the agenda now. Approach the microphone, state your name and address. Limit your comments to 3 minutes unless I authorize more. Speak directly to the mayor and council as a whole, not to any councilors individually. And the councilors and I are not to engage in discussion or debate on items by members of the public that they raise, so that and no action be taken on them, so that we comply with the open meetings laws. The microphone is open for public comment.
Hi, Sarah Rosenblum, Library Director. I know it's late. I'll just take a couple of minutes. I just want to recognize the library, again, recently lost 2 longtime dedicated library supporters. Marilyn Dodd passed away. Marilyn was a longtime friend of the library board member and great, always great input to me. And then also Harold Gorley passed away, and I know that's been kept kind of quiet by his own wishes. And so I don't really have many details, but Harold was, I believe, also a former city councilman and a longtime friend of the library board member. Harold always spoke his mind and let you know how it went. But he gave me a lot of valuable insight on the community. Again, it was kept very quiet. I was very surprised when I talked to his widow the other day and realized that he had passed away. But I just want to recognize Marilyn and Harold for their service to the public library and to the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Marilyn was one of the last of the Mohican fine ladies in town, and Harold Gorley was our 2nd District Ward counselor for many years, and his wife and he walked on Main Street daily. You could set your watch to that. Good to know about that. I don't see anybody else rising. Nobody else is checking in from the public, so I think it's time for us to entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Thompson?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Hoop?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Lolleyhoff?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
For the record, I should show we're going into closed session because of section 21.5 of the Iowa Code to talk about real estate where premature